History is filled with terrifying legends that refuse to disappear, no matter how much time passes. Every civilization has stories about creatures that wait beyond the safety of the firelight, hidden deep inside forests, mountains, and forgotten valleys. Some people call them myths, while others believe they are warnings left behind by those who were lucky enough to survive. Our first creature comes from the frozen wilderness of northern Europe, where generations of hunters spoke in whispers about a spirit known only as the Frost Warden. They believed no ordinary animal could survive the endless winters without food or shelter, and so they claimed the forest itself had created something far older than mankind to guard the places where humans were never meant to go. The Frost Warden is described as an impossibly tall figure wrapped in weathered animal hides, with enormous antlers stretching high above its head like the branches of an ancient tree. Its body appears almost frozen, solid, covered in layers of pale ice that never melt, even during the warmest days of spring. Nobody has ever described seeing its full face because it is always hidden beneath frost and shadow, except for two faint white eyes glowing through the darkness without ever blinking. Villagers believed those eyes could watch a traveler from miles away, long before the victim realized they were no longer alone. The creature never rushed toward its prey. Instead, it preferred patience. Anyone walking through the forest after sunset might begin hearing slow footsteps behind them, perfectly matching the rhythm of their own. At first, they would assume another traveler was nearby, but every time they turned around, the path behind them remained completely empty. After several minutes, the footsteps would begin again, always keeping the exact same distance, no matter how quickly the victim walked. Fear slowly replaced curiosity as the sounds continued hour after hour without revealing their source. Eventually, strange things began happening. Trees seemed to move into different positions. Narrow trails disappeared beneath untouched snow, while familiar landmarks simply vanished. Travelers often reported walking in perfectly straight lines, only to arrive back at the exact place where they had started. Sometimes they discovered fresh footprints circling them from every direction, despite never seeing another living soul. Search parties later found abandoned sleds, broken rifles, and supplies scattered across the snow, but the missing people themselves were nowhere to be found. It was as though the frozen wilderness had swallowed them whole. Those fortunate enough to escape described something even stranger. They claimed the Frost Warden never actually attacked. Instead, it slowly stole every feeling of hope. Victims became convinced they would never find their way home. They stopped believing rescue would come. Soon, they no longer cared whether they survived at all. Local elders warned children that if they ever became lost during heavy snowfall, they must ignore every unfamiliar voice, no matter how convincing it sounded, because the Frost Warden could perfectly imitate parents, siblings, close friends, or even frightened children crying somewhere between the trees. Anyone who answered those voices was believed to disappear before sunrise. Some hunters carried small bronze bells, believing their sound prevented the creature from approaching, while others wore carved wooden charms passed down through countless generations. Yet nobody could ever agree whether these protections truly worked, because many of the people carrying them still vanished without leaving behind a single trace. Even today, there are remote forests where experienced guides refuse to travel after dark. Far beyond the endless deserts of Central Asia, there are forgotten temples buried beneath oceans of sand where local nomads refuse to travel after sunset. They believe an ancient creature still wanders among the ruined pillars, waiting patiently for curious strangers. It is known as the Sand Whisperer. Unlike ordinary monsters, it does not rely on claws, fangs, or brute strength. Instead, It hunts through confusion, illusion, and fear. Travelers often describe seeing a lonely figure, standing motionless on the horizon, wrapped in long, weathered robes, with its face hidden beneath a hood that never moves in the wind. The stranger always appears just far enough away to seem reachable, yet no matter how quickly someone walks the distance, never becomes shorter. Hours can pass beneath the burning sun, while the mysterious figure remains exactly where it first appeared. Then, without warning, it disappears, leaving behind a single trail of footprints leading deeper into the endless dunes. Most people know they should turn back, but curiosity has always been stronger than caution. As daylight slowly fades, the desert begins changing in impossible ways. The wind suddenly dies. Every grain of sand becomes perfectly still. Even the sounds of footsteps seem strangely muffled until complete silence surrounds everything. Then the whispers begin. At first they are impossible to understand, like distant conversations carried across the desert, but slowly each voice becomes clearer. Some hear old friends calling their names, others hear parents begging them to come home, soldiers hear fallen comrades, children hear the voices of loved ones who disappeared many years earlier. The whispers never shout, they simply repeat familiar words over and over until answering feels almost impossible to resist. According to legend, the very moment someone speaks back, they become trapped inside the creature's illusion. The stars overhead rearrange themselves into unfamiliar patterns. The moon appears larger than nature should allow. Every dune looks identical, making direction completely meaningless. Some survivors claimed they wandered for weeks without feeling hunger, thirst, or exhaustion, as though time itself had stopped. Others insisted they watched the same sunrise dozens of times without ever escaping the desert. Eventually, the Sand Whisperer reveals its true form. Its robes fall away, revealing an impossibly tall body made from cracked stone and black glass. Countless glowing eyes slowly open across its chest, arms, and neck, each one silently watching every movement. Its fingers stretch like dry branches, leaving deep marks in the sand without making the slightest sound. Ancient storytellers believed the creature fed on certainty. Every forgotten memory, every wrong decision, and every moment of hopelessness made it stronger. Those who somehow escaped rarely returned unchanged. Many forgot the faces of their families. Others could no longer remember where they had lived. Some became terrified of silence for the rest of their lives, believing the whispers never truly stopped desert caravans. Once carried silver bells carved with sacred symbols because elders believed their sound disrupted the creature's illusions. Whether those charms actually worked, nobody can say. But even today, experienced guides refuse to travel beneath a moonlit sky across abandoned ruins. They claim the whispers are still there, patiently waiting for another traveler willing to listen. If you ever find yourself standing alone in a silent desert and hear someone calling your name from beyond the next dune, remember the oldest warning ever passed from one generation to the next. Never answer, because whatever is speaking already knows exactly where you are, and once it hears your voice, it will never stop following you. Deep within the oldest rainforests of South America, there are places so isolated that even experienced hunters refuse to enter them after sunset. Local tribes believe something ancient has lived beneath the endless canopy for thousands of years, long before the first villages were built, and long before humans learned to cross the jungle safely. They call it the Hollow Stalker. Unlike most monsters described in ancient legends, the Hollow Stalker almost never attacks immediately. Instead, it studies every movement with endless patience, waiting until fear slowly replaces confidence. Those who enter its territory usually notice only small details at first. A distant shadow standing perfectly still between two trees, branches moving, despite the complete absence of wind. footprints appearing in soft mud that do not belong to any known animal. Then the birds suddenly stop singing, insects vanish into complete silence. Even the flowing rivers seem strangely quiet. The jungle feels empty, yet every instinct warns that something is watching from just beyond sight. Elders believed this silence was the creature's greatest weapon because panic always grows louder when the world becomes completely still. Survivors described the hollow stalker as impossibly tall, with arms hanging almost to the ground and a body so unnaturally thin it seemed almost flat, like a living shadow standing upright. Its skin resembled cracked tree bark with faint streams of pale light glowing beneath the surface, as though something inside struggled to escape. Instead of a normal face, it possessed only one enormous white eye that slowly opened whenever someone looked directly toward it. Witnesses claimed the creature never blinked and never hurried. It simply walked forward at the exact same slow pace, no matter how fast its victims ran. Yet every time they dared to look back, it somehow stood much closer than before, without anyone ever seeing it move. The deeper people fled into the jungle, the stranger their surroundings became. Familiar paths curved into impossible circles. Rivers flowed in the wrong direction. Massive trees appeared where open ground had existed only moments earlier. Victims often returned to the exact same clearing again and again, convinced they had been walking in a straight line for hours. Ancient stories claimed the hollow stalker could bend the forest itself, trapping people inside an endless maze where every escape eventually led back to the place they feared most. Search parties occasionally discovered abandoned camps with food, still cooking fires still burning, and equipment scattered across the ground, but not a single sign of the missing explorers, as though they had simply vanished between one heartbeat and the next. The oldest legends say, the hollow stalker does not feed upon flesh or blood, instead, it feeds upon memory. Every person who escapes leaves behind something precious. One survivor forgot the faces of his own children. Another could no longer remember his native language. Others claimed entire years of their lives had disappeared from their minds as though those memories had never existed. Tribal shamans believed each stolen memory became another glowing crack beneath the creature's dark skin, allowing it to exist for countless centuries without ever growing old. Even today, experienced explorers occasionally report hearing slow footsteps behind them despite finding nobody nearby. Cameras fail without explanation. Compasses spin wildly. Radios dissolve into endless static before falling completely silent. Whether the hollow stalker is only an ancient warning or something still hiding beneath the endless green canopy, nobody truly knows. But one rule has survived every generation. If the jungle suddenly becomes completely silent, leave immediately. Because if you can no longer hear the forest, there is a very good chance the forest is listening to you.